Hi guys, welcome back to an episode of Comic Relief. This week's pool is what I like to call it.
What are we reading?
Thank you so much, Jake. And today we're going to be talking about the comics that will be coming out tomorrow. We're going to start off with me talking about The Life of Captain Marvel.
Issue 1.
Issue 1, guys.
Felt so wrong. It was so reversed. I wasn't expecting
I know,
this.
you both wasn't expecting
You just came off with such a gusto, and I don't even know.
I had to take over.
I was a little stunned, but okay.
Was you a little stunned?
I was.
Okay?
You're hosting.
Okay. Well, just intro.
You're hosting.
Okay, let's get on with this, okay? All right. So, this book is written by Margaret Stowe. Stowe. And pencil is done by Carlos Pacheco. Yeah, Pacheco. Thank you for always being there. So this book follows Captain Marvel in present day.
Carol Danvers, Captain Marvel.
Carol Danvers, Captain Marvel. And in the middle of a battle, she starts remembering back on her childhood and starts having what seems like a panic attack by thinking about her father. It's Father's Day. And she's thinking about her father, and apparently he was not a very nice guy. He's pretty abusive.
Shocker.
So she feels like she needs to go home. And she needs to visit with her mom and her brother.
Well, it's also because it's Father's Day.
And it's also Father's Day. And when she's there, not a very good family kind of. It's very dysfunctional for the fact that she has not been there for a while, and everybody's kind of upset about that. And while she's there, a tragedy happens, and it kind of keeps her at home for a while. And for some reason, she is afraid to go to New York, which I think in this situation, it does make sense. Other than that, there's not a lot to say about it without spoiling anything that happens in this book. I really don't want to spoil any kind of big things that happen in this book. But this book doesn't really have a whole lot of action to it. This whole book is mostly just talking about the character of Carol Danvers and where her mental state is. I would give this book about, well, I guess I'll reveal our grading scale this week. I would give this book about 2.75 God's Vomit.
Okay. Dallas and I read this book as well. So basically, this book it's a character piece about Carol Danvers and where she comes from and why she is the way she is, which is, of course, it feels a little updated from the Carol Danvers we know from 10, 15 years ago. For me, it was actually a decent little read. It felt like a character piece. You kind of forget that you're reading a superhero comic for a while, and you're just kind of watching this kind of family drama happen. And I kind of settled into the groove there, and at the very end, they throw you for a loop, and it becomes a completely different type of book, and it was very contradicting in tone for me, and so for that, it really just kind of messed up the leveling out of this book, and I think it could have ended stronger. I think the aspirations to make this book something a little different, as opposed to what the beginning of the book was a mistake, in my opinion. I think you could have told, because this is only going to be a 5-issue thing, and I think you could have easily just made it focused on Carol and where her origins and where she comes from and why she has this very unoriginal PTSD kind of thing going on. But for me, anyway, I'm going to give it just a solid 2 God's Vomiting.
It was an okay issue, as you both said. It's basically a character development issue. You're just getting to know her as a person, not her as a superhero. Basically all it is, so don't expect a lot of action going into it. So I'm going to keep my review nice and short, and I'm probably also going to go 2 out of 5 God's Vomit.
All right.
So now we're getting into the Immortal Hulk, number 3. The team on this one.
Al Ewing is the writer.
This one has multiple different people, so I'm going to read off several names. Joe Bennett was the framing sequence penciler. Rui, if we're saying this correctly, Jose was the inker. The cop story was Leonardo Ramiro. The bartender story was Paul Hornsheimer. And several others, so I'm just going to let you guys get into that. This one is very unique to the other two. The other two had set this horror story-esque thing with the Hulk. I think you brought the best analogy up for it, like a Jaws type thing. You don't really see the Hulk, but he's there, and it's more horror-based. And this one took a very different approach, not in terms of only the story, but also the art. Several different artists give their own interpretations of it. You're following this heist situation, and it's being told through several different perspectives. You get to see a unique villain. I'm not going to say any names or anything. It's just a unique read is the best way to say it without giving any spoilers. There seems to be a lot going on, but when you really read the whole book, there really isn't that much happening. And to me, this is the weakest of the 3 so far, and the artwork choice is not even close to being my favorite. The first 2 set a very unique art precedent that I really enjoy. This one, not quite sure what to give it. I'm probably going Probably about the same. 2 out of 5 God's Vomit. It's not the best so far.
I've had a while to sit there and think about it. It's the first book I read this week. It's not the best out of the 3, but I like it for the fact that it kind of sets this tone of you understand how other people around are viewing the situation of the Hulk returning. And the more I think about it, it's more of like a setup story. Just kind of give you an idea of, we already see how Bruce is doing this, like where Bruce is at, mentally. And now let's see what the other people outside, the audience, are seeing. And as like citizens and stuff. So when I started thinking about it some more, I started liking it more. There is different art style changes, and that kind of throws me off a little bit. But at the same time, I understand why they're doing it. It does kind of set the tone for the way the certain story is being told at that certain time. The more I think about it, the more I actually enjoy the book. I'm giving it a 2.5 God's Vomit.
Okay, yeah. For me, again, I read it as well. Definitely the low point in the 3 issues that have come out so far. I understand the different perspectives. Basically, it's several eyewitness accounts told from the perspective of somebody else, and with each perspective, you get a different artist, and the art reflects that person's perception of kind of what went down. But the thing is, there's actually no Hulk really isn't in this book, so it doesn't actually further the plot, which is what I think the 3 of us have the biggest issue with, is because the first 2 issues, it seemed like it was, there were isolated issues, but it's like the Hulk is kind of moving forward, he's doing something. This one isn't told through the perspective of Hulk, it's not told through the perspective of Bruce Banner. It's all secondhand accounts of something that went down. And it makes it hard to really invest in it. And I get what Ewing is going for here, just kind of like, how does it affect the rest of the world that Hulk is kind of doing what he's doing in the manner that he's doing it. But it didn't land, and I hope issue 4 ends up being better. I think we saw this with the Avengers. Issue 4 was kind of like the lower point for the first 4 issues.
You got to have some lower points to set up the story.
You have to.
Yeah, but I think this one you could have moved the story along without having this feels like it came to a screeching halt for me, only because again, it's all the eyewitness accounts, and they're all kind of talking in their own vernacular. They're all kind of either romanticizing the situation, they're dogging on it. It's just, it's okay. But at the end, you see that a character is coming back, and that he's going to be helping out with the investigation as to where is Bruce Banner. That's really the only part of the story that moves the rest of the story forward, is that where is Bruce Banner and how do we find him? There's an investigation. So that was a nice reminder, because the rest of the book I didn't remember that there was an investigation on where is Bruce Banner. So for me, I'm there with you guys. I'm going to kind of split the difference. 2.25 God's Vomit.
Nice.
And then the next issue we are going to talk about is Thor #3 by Jason Aaron and Mike Del Mundo on the art. Now, if you guys have been listening to me, you know I absolutely love Jason Aaron on Thor, and this one is actually a pretty interesting little issue. The biggest kind of shock and awe for me came from the very end, which I'm not sure how that plays out, or if even what I'm seeing is real, to be honest. But what I like about this book is that at its best, it feels Game of Thrones-ian, right?
We're making another one?
Twin Peakian, now it's Games of Thrones-ian.
What was the Arting?
Arting, Umbrellica.
Umbrellica, yeah.
And Twin Peakian. Now we got Games of Thronian. We're going to make our own dictionary by the end of this podcast. But so, at its best, it's that. And at its worst, it's kind of a cheap imitation of Thor Ragnarok at times. But basically, what I like about this, though, is that you're kind of getting a family dynamic between Thor and the Odin sons, and then Loki and Hela. So they shed light on actually a trivia question that we had when we held it, which was that Hela is Loki's daughter, Fenris is his son, and their brother and sister. So you get the whole nephew-uncle dynamic between Thor and all these guys. There's some great jokes from Thori, right?
Yeah.
And
Thorgy's a YouTuber.
Yeah, he's another YouTuber.
Check him out. He's actually really good.
He is good. And then you also get some good stuff from Tyr, Balder. But basically, the story is that Cinder, who is the Queen of Muspelheim, who is also Surtur's daughter, is coming to Niflheim to basically take over, and Hela can't have that, so they kind of have to have this marriage in order to form an army. It's a little bit of Lords of the Ring, too. But I enjoyed this issue. Mike Del Mundo, I'm not crazy about his art in this, and it's maybe because I'm used to Russell Dodderman being on it, but I'm not crazy about it. You can tell that he has weaknesses in his art, so he tries to hide it by making sure it's not in the panel, and this issue is the one I saw that the most in. But all in all, I still thought it was a pretty damn entertaining read. I had a great time. I love the Thor and Loki dynamic here. I love Thori. I'm loving Balder and Tyr. Hela, Fenris. I mean, it's got a lot of great stuff going on. So I'm gonna give it a solid 3.25 God's Vomit.
Josh and I both also read this one.
Yep.
To me, I think this is actually, again, I don't know what it is about issue 3 so far. This one's the weakest of the 3 so far to me. And I felt like the first issue was a good entry point for the people that didn't know Thor. They kind of explained the realms and the people. I'm not a huge Thor fan, nor have I read a lot, so I was a little lost on some of the dynamics and stuff between characters. And the artwork, while it's beautiful and vibrant at times, it reminds me a lot of I reviewed it last week, Aliens Dust to Dust. It's so unique, but when it gets time to action, sometimes it's hard to depict what's going on. You kind of really have to look at it to understand it. And not that that's necessarily a bad thing, it gives you another appreciation for the artwork, but it kind of hinders your understanding when you're reading through it. It was a solid read, like I said, weakest of the 3 so far.
But I don't think it had the lowest. It had the lows that like Immortal Hulk had.
No. This one I'm probably gonna go 2.75, 3-ish God's Vomit.
All right. I personally, I thought it was about the same thing. It was probably the lowest of the 3 for me. The ending does have me a little excited. I'm not gonna lie about that. I give it a 2.5 God's Vomit. This mostly for me. In one thing about me, if you're wanting to hear a good Thor review, if you want to hear some honest Thor ratings, you want to listen to Jake on that. Jake is the one who loves Thor. He reads Thor all the time. It's one of his favorites. For me, Thor is just a book that I just never really... I mean, I can enjoy it and I can tell when it's good, but it's not going to be the first thing I pick up just because I just don't really get into that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's fair. All right. Do you want to move on to the Avengers number 5?
Yes, me and Jake read Avengers number 5, and if you guys have been listening, you know me and Jake praised the first issue of Avengers. The last few issues were kind of slow, just kind of set up, and this is where it finally picks back up. It kind of goes a little bit through the history of the Celestials,
which I have to say, I'm sorry, I love it, dude.
It's great. It's great.
You know, there's this whole question in the Marvel Universe: why is Earth so populated with superheroes? And in this book, they finally give you an answer, and you're like, "Fuck yeah, I'm down with that shit," because it's very cosmic and celestial and ethereal and stuff. But I loved it. But anyway, go ahead.
And then we start going from there to actually getting to the actual... We're starting with the actual battle now. We're getting to the actual fight. And just watching all these, the members of this roster kind of team up in their own... Like in the past few issues, they've been teaming up in their own little, partners. Now they're actually kind of forming back together. And it's... I mean, I'm really digging this roster of team members. And there's characters in this, like Ghost Rider. I never really cared about this Robbie Ghost Rider.
I'm loving
Ghost Rider in this. And I know a lot of people, they were scared when they heard that they're doing this, people who really like Robbie as a Ghost Rider, because he's very small town. He just mostly, and he even mentions it in his book, he only really takes down drug dealers and some demons. But now this is like over his pay grade, but it's so good, and there's a big, huge surprise at the end that just seals this book. I'm giving this 3.0 God's Vomit.
Oh wow, I'm going a little higher with it, but like I'm loving this book.
I'm going low this week, just so you know.
I can tell. I can feel a little negativity.
I'm still spit from some Amazing Spider-Man number 1 last week. Nothing's topping that for me.
But that's definitely like our baseline. But anyway, no. So this one, I'm loving Avengers issue 5. I feel like Jason Aaron's like a big fanboy, and he's just like, I'm gonna put the shit in this book that I know fans like me want to see. So that's what he's doing, And what's great is everybody's getting a moment to shine. Cap gets a shine against Loki. Dude, Robbie Reyes, Ghost Rider. Not Robbie, is that his name?
Yeah.
Okay, his Ghost Rider. Dude, the shit he shows off that he can do in this book, that's exciting and cool as hell. I'd say his weakest person he writes is Iron Man. He's still a little bit of like the jokey, snarky guy, which is fine, but I like when he can show a little bit more serious side to him. Black Panther, Doctor Strange, everyone in here is just on point, and it's like in the past couple issues, everyone kind of paired off and was kind of doing their own thing, like Thor and She-Hulk were out doing something, Doctor Strange and Black Panther were out doing something. Now everyone's coming together. This is the issue where these guys all come together as a team.
I want to interrupt you real quick. I'm going to change my rating, 3.5. I just saw a panel that I forgot all about, And that panel just gives me chills every time I see it. So.
Okay, so
So,
3.5.
Redact
3.5.
the last one. Now it's
Yeah,
3.5.
yes. Now,
3.5
Jake,
what?
go back.
Yeah, but
3.5 God's Vomit.
Okay.
all right, that's the first time we ever had someone change their rating.
I had to. I saw a panel in there.
But not only that, but it's like this is something we don't see the Avengers do very often. And again, if you've been reading this book, it's like the Celestials are coming down to Earth, and you find out why they're doing it. You know, at the beginning of the series, like what the hell is going on, and why are these guys coming to Earth? Now you're figuring it out. Now you're finding out there's a lot of history, rich history in this universe, and so I'm very excited for the next issue, especially after what I saw there.
Yeah.
The only thing I'm gonna say is like if you love Japanese anime kind of stuff, this would be right up your alley with certain genres of that. But I'm gonna go right with you, man. I'm going 3.5 God's Vomit.
Yeah. Well, it's another thing I want to throw in there before we continue is Ed McGuinness is getting even better on
Every
this book.
issue he's getting better.
I remember I always thought Ed McGuinness was like a good artist, but never like this right here just like seals it in that he's like a great artist and that he deserves to be in Marvel.
Isn't that like awesome to see, taking away from the review for a moment, when you see an artist and you're like, well, it's okay, and then you go another issue and you're like, okay, it's a little bit, and they
see
just
them
keep getting better.
progressing, yeah.
Like, you know, when
Yeah.
you see Alex Ross do anything, you know he's going to be phenomenal, but when you see someone growing with a series, you're like, that's just,
Oh, yeah.
that's awesome.
That's why I was with Jim Chung, The Young Avengers. Like each issue he did in that series, to me, he just got better and better.
That's what I'm
But
feeling
anyway,
about Otley right now, because I'm
Oh,
reading
man.
Invincible, so I'm seeing him get better and better through
yeah.
it. So
He
now,
had to throw in
I know,
Invincible.
he had to-
I
I
wanted
was gonna
to,
say
just
it.
one time.
He wanted to
Alright.
review that today, guys.
So moving on, we all read Tony Stark Iron Man #2. We all liked the first issue quite a bit. Jake, being the residential Iron Man fan, he was really impressed, and Josh and I both were.
Resident Iron Man fan, not
Whatever.
residential.
Whatever. The team on this is Dan Slott, Valero Sheedy, and Edgar Delgado. All correct? Okay.
Edgar, but yeah.
Edgar. It's got a little tilde above it, so I'm
Sure.
making a little accent. So this one, we get several different character plots, just like the first issue had. So this one, you get a little bit of War Machine Rhodey. You see some PTSD, which it was weird because it starts off with that. So I was expecting, you know, to continue from issue 1, and it jumps straight into Rhodey. So you see some of that. You see some of Jocasta Pym. You see some things she's dealing with in terms of being an android, not human, and seeing all these humans, and she tries to pretend like she's okay, but towards the later of the issue, you kind of find out she's not. She's really struggling with it. You get some Bethany Cabe, which is like this espionage sort of. She's trying to, this is a reveal from the first issue, not this one. She is under the mind influence of someone.
The Controller.
The Controller.
Yeah.
And she is infiltrating Stark's systems, but she doesn't even know it. No one else knows it. They're trying to figure it out. And you see Rhodey dealing with his, not necessarily physical limitations, but his mental limitations. He's not wanting to take risks with himself because he's in a new body. He wants to play it safe, whereas Tony's like, I don't care, I was given the second chance, I'm going to enjoy it. That's what a second chance is for. And so you see some nice like moments between Rhodey and Tony, which, I mean, has always been their dynamic. They've always been a good back and forth. What is the android's name? I'm forgetting her name. Friday. She gets a body, which was interesting to see that. She's very flirtatious and like upbeat.
She was always kind of like that in Bendis' run too, so I like that they're kind of, you know, carrying that over.
Don't forget that we also get to see the biological mother of Tony Stark. You know, because Tony Stark was adopted.
He just had to throw one in there since we're reviewing Tony Stark. Anyways, continuing with the espionage theme, plans get inserted into their systems. They catch on to the plans, and so they go to find out what's going on. I'm not going to go into the rest of it because that's when the action starts to happen. Overall, I thought it was a good follow-up. It wasn't as good as the first one because the first one just had so much to offer. But this one, I will applaud the team. Dan Slott, he's balancing several different plot lines and storylines very well. And at no point did I feel like one was getting thrown under the rug and the other one was getting the limelight. Everything felt pretty evenly paced to me. So this one, I'm going to give this one probably about 3.75 God's Vomit.
All right, that's actually that's a good review. What I'm loving about this is, again, it's still kind of the setting of the chessboard going on. There's some, I don't know what it is about Dan Slott. He loves those like minor, minuscule characters that nobody ever thinks about. Like Gauntlet shows up in this. There's a Machine Man reference in this. Of course, the Controller in the first issue. He's loving all these like minor characters and he's bringing them back. But yeah, you're right. I love seeing Jocasta. She's kind of like we find it's something that we never really think about. Dan Slott's really good about this. It's stuff we never really think about. Jocasta's an android. She talks about how AI feel like they feel contained in the suit, almost like it's a prison. So what they're doing is they're trying to make an AI that isn't imprisoned inside of Tony's armors, and I love that. So it's like, you know, they have this, Jocasta's actually like their robotic ethicist, so she's thinking about like the ethics of artificial intelligence, because, you know, there's been this big long debate amongst sci-fi for a long time. Is artificial intelligence real? You know, is it real intelligence? Do they feel real emotions and stuff like that? So she's the ethicist, and I think that's really cool. We're getting the dynamic again of the buddy cop duo between Iron Man and War Machine. For so long, War Machine was kind of operating on his own. He was an Avenger all on his own right, and Iron Man was his. Now it's like bring them back together. They're buddies, and we get to see War Machine. He's dealing with like the PTSD of having been killed by Thanos, and how he feels like the War Machine armor, it's just like this suffocating thing for him, and he doesn't want to be in it anymore. So now he's got something that's maybe he feels a little more at home being a pilot because he's from the Air Force. And he's balancing a lot of different storylines here, but they're all really interwoven pretty well. I think that they're all integrated really well together. And so again, Dan Slott doing a lot of stuff where he's taking a character you know and taking the tropes that you identify, but he's shedding a light on it that you're not always thinking of, at least in the front of your mind. And one thing again I do like is that Tony, he's this eccentric billionaire playboy, and he's like he's bored of the mundane, monotonous lifestyle of most people. He's richer than all get out. He can do whatever the fuck he wants. He's like, hey, I just built this rock wall 5 minutes ago. Why not? Let's test it out. You know, so he's testing the limits of his new body too. And we find out at the end that there's a kind of a wrench thrown into the plan there. So anyway, I'm with you. 3.75 God's Vomit.
I have one thing to add. You brought something up and I didn't think about it. You brought up Jocasta being so contained within the AI. She felt like it was like a metal shield and she wanted to get out of it. But at the same time, on the opposite side, Rhodey feels the same exact way. He's a human, but he has the choice to get into the War Machine suit, and he feels exactly the same way she does.
That duality. I didn't pick up on
you
that.
You just brought up Jocasta, and when you said it like that, I was like, wait a minute.
If you actually reread, I can't remember the exact words used, but there is a part where Jocasta says something, and then Rhodey goes like, yeah, I understand. Like, he understands, you know, I can't remember exactly what the words said.
I think that'll be a further developing plot between them.
Yeah.
I don't know what, I think they're just setting the seeds right now, like setting them down. They're not like planting them or anything, they're just setting them.
Yeah, and
yeah, see right hand here.
Yeah, and Slott.
Yep, sounds terrible.
Slott actually does a good job too, but he's given us an audience character. It's this new, I can't pronounce his name very well. This character that was introduced in the first one, he's kind of the introduction into Stark's new operation. So he's kind of the character we're getting to see everything through his lens. You know,
we're technically
Brang.
Yeah, huh?
Andy Brang.
Yeah,
I think the robotics
is it
engineer.
Bang? It's like BH, isn't it?
Is it? Yeah, it is.
Yeah, so
Bang.
it's a weird, Bang, but I like that character as well too, and I love the shirt that he's wearing. 1.21 gigawatts.
He's literally like any regular person if they were to get into Stark. He's just so amazed by everything.
He's
all the time.
fanboying like we would. So yeah, I really dug it. What about you, Josh? How did you feel about Iron Man?
I actually enjoyed it. Out of all the Marvel books, it's probably one of my favorite ones that I've read. One thing I really like about Dan Slott is, like, if you read this, it reminds you, like, you get that Dan Slott feel like that you got with Amazing Spider-Man. But it does not feel like Amazing Spider-Man at the same time. It's really weird how that works out. But with that being said, I'm actually right there with you guys. 3.75.
Hey, I think it's the second time we've ever all had the exact same.
I think so.
Same grade for a book. So if you're looking for a good book to pick up, Tony Stark, Iron Man #2. All right, the next one we're going to move on to is X-Men Red #6 by Taylor and Carnero. Now this X-Men Red, I thought it showed promise from the beginning, but then it started to get very heavy-handed with its progressive messages. You know, and I get that's what X-Men's always been about, but again, I think this is one of the series where less is a little bit more, because again, it's very heavy-handed. They're talking about like the inclusion and rights for everyone. You've got this character, it's Cassandra Nova, who is Professor X's like twin sister or something, and she's got this grudge against Professor X because it's like some Broly shit from DBZ. It's like, he tried to kill me in the womb, but he didn't obviously try and do it consciously. It's Broly bitching about, you know, Goku crying next to him in the crib. But she's like, we're gonna cleanse it. Where, you know, humans don't think about mosquitoes and we just swat them and try and kill them away. But what bug kills more people every year than anything else is mosquitoes. So she's trying to like program the human race using Forge to try and like program the human race to just like eliminate mutants as like a reactionary thing. And then, you know, the X-Men Red, they've made their headquarters in Atlantis with Namor. I always forget Namor is a mutant. It doesn't register with me because he's the king of Atlantis. But yeah, he's a mutant, so he's part of X-Men Red. And so Jean, she's making a new Cerebro under the sea, you know. So She's trying to do that, and they're all trying to steal something. It kind of gets convoluted, but I don't know. There's a character that, if anyone remembers Superior Iron Man, they make an appearance towards the very end, but I don't know. This book's really not doing it for me. Other than the roster, I'm not a big fan of this book, and I don't know that I would actually consider keeping on this title if I'm not absolutely sucked into it. If anybody is reading it and they're loving this book, this is probably one of the better issues, but it's just not something that I like. One of the best things I think it has going for it is that they have repurposed a Mark I Sentinel to be part of their team, kind of like their vehicle to get around. But
I thought for sure he's going to say Nightcrawler's beard.
I do love Nightcrawler's beard. By the way, guys, if you notice, we have a few new avatars done, and I think they're pretty good. I like them. I did the pencils, and my cousin who did the coloring and the inking said I definitely need to take credit for those pencils. So Dallas is Daredevil, me as Plutonian, Josh is Deadman. I hope you guys like those. They were a lot of fun to do. But the characters with the beards, I tend to draw towards because I think Nightcrawler looks good with a beard.
There's not a lot, honestly.
No, I miss Colossus having a beard. I'm loving Nightcrawler with a beard, so that's definitely worth picking it up right there.
Nightcrawler with a beard. No, First appearance of Nightcrawler with a beard.
But if I had to give this thing a rating, I'd just go 1.5. God's Vomit. Not very good. Not my favorite.
All right, so now I will move on to a title that I've not read at all, and this was actually my introduction really to the character, was SpiderGwen number 34. The team on this is Jason Latour, Robbie Rodriguez, and then several other people. So, moving on. It picks up, I'm assuming, kind of, Josh has actually read most of the series, but he's a little behind, so he'll be able to fill in some gaps if I miss them. It picks up with Gwen in prison. It seems like she's dealing with repercussions of taking on the symbiote. Basically, it seems like New York's kind of turned against her. I'm not sure why. Maybe you might be able to fill that in.
No.
Okay.
Like I said, I'm behind on it. I'm waiting to read up in one big, huge lump sum.
So New York has kind of turned against her, so it very, very briefly, like 2 pages, she's in prison, and then all of a sudden it's like she's counting down in her head, and next thing you know, she wakes up in the hospital in like a doctor's office, and it's already, she's out of prison. Like, time has passed, they addressed it shortly, but moving on, it's nice to see the other universe like characters, because you get a neurologist, Dr. Asim Strange, so Dr. Strange. Thought that was a nice little nod. But moving on, basically her dad was in bad condition, he's being released from the hospital, so she's going to make it her mission to kind of take care of him. But Captain Stacy is like a stubborn ass. He doesn't want to listen to anybody, he wants to do what he wants to do, and he's going to do it because he's such a driven person and holds himself to such high regards that he needs to fulfill those. And she's kind of trying to like take it easy, and first thing they're wanting to get some chow when he gets out, and he's like all Raisha. And so she's like doing her SpiderGwen stuff, jumping on rooftops, climbing, and she keeps trying to push him to take it easy. Let's get a taxi, let's quit doing this, and he keeps going and going. So it's basically this father-daughter dynamic of them getting reacquainted, and him basically saying, like, I accept you as SpiderGwen. You got to do what you got to do, even if people don't approve of it. You have to be who you are, and you have to stay true to that. So that's a good message behind the book. The artwork, it's really unique. Very bright, vibrant, colorful aesthetics, purples and blues, and kind of what I would associate with SpiderGwen and like the fandom and the fan art I've seen and her costume. Not a whole lot to me in terms of SpiderGwen happens in this book. It's basically just Gwen Stacy and her father. So this one was an interesting read for me. I'm a little lost. I might continue it, but I'd give this one probably 2 out of 5 God's Vomits.
You are super. I mean, you are jumping on in a weird spot.
Sounds like it.
Yeah, you're. I mean, like that's issue 34.
Yeah.
And there's like 2 volumes of that already.
I thought you were going to say there's
the
like
most
33
interesting
issues.
fact. The most interesting fact about you reading this and starting on your first SpiderGwen book on this is the cover is actually a recreation of the first appearance of SpiderGwen, which is Edge of Spider-Verse number 2. It's actually a recreation of that cover, so it's kind of funny.
Well, there you go, collectors. If you're looking for a recreation, Josh just plugged it. If you're a SpiderGwen fan, I'm sure you're going to enjoy it. From what I've heard on the character, it sounds like this issue is pretty true to the character. So if you enjoy SpiderGwen, I'd suggest probably at least flipping through it, probably coming down to Comic Relief and picking it up.
The one last book that I've read out of Marvel is Infinity Countdown, issue 5. This is the end of the Infinity Countdown. Written by Jerry Duggan. Art is done by Aaron Cooter.
I knew he was going to say something.
And Mike Hawthorne. So the series, I haven't really talked a whole lot about it, and I love like the idea of Infinity Stones and Thanos and everything. This book just hasn't really been doing a whole lot for me. It's all leading up to Infinity War. And this just kind of tells you the development of where all these Infinity Stones are. And that's what this whole thing was, is just pretty much telling you who has the Infinity Stones and, you know, that they need to get an Infinity Watch together because there's going to be something going on. I give this book about 1.75 God's Vomit. It just doesn't do it for me, which is really kind of sad because it deals with Jerry Duggan's writing it, and I really like Jerry Duggan. And it also deals with like Infinity Stones and stuff, and I love stuff like that, but it's not really doing it for me.
I read the first 2 issues of that book, and I was kind of pissed off because I was like, this is Marvel pulling the old bait and switch. They canceled Guardians of the Galaxy, and we're like, we're just going to continue their story in Infinity Countdown. And then it sounds to me like Infinity Countdown is basically what Edge of Venomverse was to just Venomverse. It's like the event lead up to the actual event, you know. So I'm glad I hopped off of it. It didn't interest me the first 2 issues. So anyway, going on to the last book I'm going to cover today, XMen Gold number 32 by Mark Guggenheim and Perez. It's a really interesting name. Again, they're sidestepping the entire Kitty and Colossus didn't get married. You know, it's literally like the day after, and Rachel is just being controlled by Mesmero again, and she's just taking out the X-Men because in her mind she sees that she's in the future that she's from. Also, there's a nice little shower scene between the new Pyro and Iceman, which is awesome. And then, you know, just a bunch of shit happens that is basically Mark Guggenheim like, I don't want to have to deal with the fallout just yet of Kitty and Colossus not getting married, so I'm going to make this bullshit story up and buy the issue for $3.99. That seems like the model they're going after here. All I'm thinking is, what is the fallout of Kitty and Colossus not getting married? Let me see what they're doing. I'm more interested in the characters than I am the action here, and you're not giving me the characters. So this is my lowest rated one God Vomit, and that's all I got for you. So Josh, do you want to take us out of here since you decided to sweep in and take this one?
All right, everybody.
Here comes his Let It Go naked.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Thank you for listening. If you listened this long, I just want to tell you, everybody, please like, subscribe, share. You know, come into your local comic book shop. Tell them, hey, I listened to Comic Relief After Hours. And man, they really talked me in and out of some books.
Yeah, because you have no chemistry or, you know, charisma right now. I'm going to take this. Guys, thanks for listening so much. Definitely comment below. Let us know what you guys have been reading, or if there's anything you guys want us to cover, or if there's anything you should just say, hey, you should read this. But we really appreciate it, and be on the lookout because the DC one should be up here very soon. Take care.